Hi, this is Ray Parker, and this is our first Fabrics and Furnishings International webinar dealing with Corona business before and after. Welcome. If you have your um, if you have your microphone on, please disconnect that so we don't hear any kind of background noises. So we have four experts here that are going to deal with certain issues about the coronavirus and how to get back in business and what to do. And we're going to start with Tom Cook of Blue Tiger, who is a supply chain expert. And then we have Nimish Arora, who is the managing director of Dicitex in India. We have Joseph Wheeler, who is the managing director of Nutex in Germany. And then we have Melissa, who is, help me with your last name, sorry.
That's okay, Dijon Filippo of Serendipity Consulting.
There we go, thank you very much. During the presentation, if you have questions, go ahead and use that at the bottom during the Q&A, and we're gonna answer those at the end. Each speaker will talk a little bit about the business, how they're doing it, and their angle from it. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A. So why don't we start with Tom? Tom, if you could introduce yourself and maybe a little bit about, I understand you have a PowerPoint that you're going to go over and present.
Great. Thank you. I hope everybody can see the PowerPoint now. First of all, let me thank Fabrics and Furnishings, and specifically Ray and Michael, for having this event. I think it's a critical factor today with all what's going on and how quickly things are changing, that organizations, particularly media organizations, have this kind of outreach. So I really want to extend thank you and appreciate being invited. So my company is Blue Tiger International. We go back to 1981. We're involved in global supply chain and specifically about helping companies reduce risk and spend in the supply chain. And while we're involved in probably about 15 or 16 different industry verticals, we do have a few accounts that are in this particular fabrics and textile, apparel, what we call the rag business in the New York market. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of the COVID-19 on the supply chain, and more importantly, I'm going to frame the issues and also provide some suggestions. As consultants, we have well over 500 companies that come to our organization for advice and counsel, so things that are not proprietary is what I'm going to share with you today. First off, starting is that this COVID-19 pandemic today, here in May, has impacted every country and every industry in the world. For fabrics, furnishings, apparel, textiles, and other related products, it has reduced production, meaning manufacturing, by as much as 70 to 80% worldwide, and in some markets as much as 100%. The economic, operational, and financial impact is catastrophic, and it is estimated that from as much as 20 to a high of 40% will not recover once this pandemic resides, and or will struggle significantly. There is a direct connection between the words relationship, travel, and international business. Relationships is one of the most important founding blocks of global trade. It's how people conduct business from one country to another. That's accomplished by travel, people meeting with each other, breaking bread, and developing good, secure, and personal relationships. That's the basic founding of international business. When travel stops, as it has now, that impacts relationship and it impacts international business. Having said all that, the good news is that most professionals, and we have analysts on our staff that track the academic world, tracks the political and government world, and also follows all the commercial interests that broadcast. And we believe that once the health aspects of the pandemic are fully arrested, and we all know that most of the world is seeing a decline in the number of cases that are occurring, that the economies of the world will be reestablished to the levels it was in 2019. The timeline that we're passing off to our clients is as follows, is that by June, which is only 3 weeks away now, we believe that 80% of the world will start to have opened up again. That July through September, recovery will slowly take off, and appreciate the fact that there are some areas of the world and some countries that are a little bit behind that curve. By October of 2020, most people in the world of business will say that the recovery now is in full swing. In the fourth quarter, we're anticipating that the recovery has occurred and we'll start to see an increase in growth back into the economies of the world. And in 2021, we're predicting that global growth will be pretty significant and also reasonably robust. Specific to your industry, the information that we were able to gather is that your business model will be slower growth by about 4 to 6 months. Recovery will only happen to about 70 to 80% of your industry. Some markets and segments will not recover at all and or will have longer recovery curve. One of the reasons for this is there's a direct relationship of your product and marketing line directly to retail and to consumers. And we all know that consumer confidence is going to drive this. And right now, consumer confidence is at an all-time low. Retail, we don't have to talk about in terms of the problems that it had before this pandemic, and it certainly has been amplified by this pandemic with a lot of retailers now going into bankruptcy, particularly here in the United States. However, we do believe that your companies that supply the commercial and industrial product lines will actually see some growth occur and more robust liveliness in your area. Also, you have to keep in mind that as this pandemic has occurred and there's been a tremendous need for PPE, the products that are for personal equipment protection for the industry are being diverted. So a number of fabrics that would normally go into certain consumer items are being diverted for masks and for gowns and for hats. And attached to the actual fabrics and materials is also the chemicals that are used in the manufacturing process. So this diversion has occurred, it's still occurring, and likely to occur for the next few months before it stabilizes. That draws directly on the resources that your industry is involved with. Also appreciate the fact that in your industry, there's a huge presence of manufacturing in the third world and the developing nations. And the question is going to be, how quickly are some of these areas going to be able to recover? That's going to be controlled by the growth and the capacity of its infrastructure, not only in terms of manufacturing, but also as it relates to transportation, logistics, and supply chain. The repositioning of supply chain assets is going to be an important issue. Appreciate the fact that this virus, in terms of its roots, was in China, which then spread to other places in the world from a business standpoint. And China, serving the world, had a tremendous amount of capacity and assets dedicated for air freight and ocean freight transportation. As we got into January and February and China stopped manufacturing, we got into the problem that a lot of carriers and organizations reposition those assets. So as China has now come back and is slowly coming back to full steam, there has to be a reposition of those assets, and that's going to take several months. Another issue is the financial resources being brought to the countries and the industries that are important to you.
I'm sorry. So will that mean China's going to be full capacity?
I'm sorry?
Does that mean China is going to be slower in coming back to their full capacity, even though they got started earlier than, say, the US?
Their manufacturing capacity, depending upon who you speak to, is probably now at about 80%, where back in the end of February, it was almost at zero. So they've come a long way in the last 2 months. The issue is that while the manufacturing capacity and the inventory there might be ready to move, the logistics capacity, the ability to move it out of the country, is not there at 100% yet. And it's going to take several months for the repositioning of carriers, both on the air freight side and the ocean freight side, to be able to meet that demand. So It's slowly happening as we speak, but it's nowhere near. We would measure it at about 70%. And a comment that I'm going to make earlier is the cost of that logistics is that price has actually gone up already and is going to continue to rise as well.
Okay, great.
Thanks. So financial resources being brought to the countries and industries that are important to your business model. This is the government aid that's happening both at the federal level and the state level in the various regional levels in all your different countries that you're involved with. This is a critical factor. And then the last thing is more esoteric, but it's actually a very critical factor here because, as we all know, businesses are run by people. Okay? And so the resilience, the determination, the creativity, and the tolerance of the executives and the workers in your business model is going to have a huge impact on how quickly recovery happens. Some of the recommendations that we've made to a number of our clients, which we've seen to be beneficial advice, is conserving your inventory. How quickly are you going to replenish materials and parts and so forth? So you have to be very careful of how you collect it and how you let it out. Demand planning has to be much more intensely done carefully and resourcefully. Complete collaboration between suppliers and customers. We like to use the words of being open, transparent, and honest, and with robust communications. We have a marketing executive on our panel here who's going to talk a little bit about that in more detail. You need to evaluate your service providers. These become much more important to you when you're in this kind of pandemic circumstance. 3PLs, freight forwarders, custom house brokers. I think there's going to be a whole rethinking of the safety stock and the planning of what company is going to hold going forward. The ability to develop resources, meaning the information that's coming into you so you can make better decisions. And the ongoing effort of continually trying to create circumstances where you can mitigate the impact of the tariffs that hit everybody, particularly the ones called 301 on goods coming from China into the United States. Other critical recommendations, specifically relative to tariff mitigation, is the opportunity to look at alternative sourcing. On our panel, we have somebody here from India as an option to China. They become a very good source. Other countries like Pakistan and Turkey, Malaysia, Taiwan, all fit into that mode, as well as Mexico. Mentioned free trade agreements. When we look for U.S. companies, we look to places where we have free trade agreements to get the opportunity where goods can move without the concern of tariffs and duties. Bonded warehouses, foreign trade zones, the ability to engineer our products so we can change the harmonized tariff numbers to get lower duty rates, the ability to arrange for consolidation freight movements, and more importantly, and the growing need for utilizing technology in helping us manage our supply chain issues.
Tom, I really like your presentation. Is it okay? I just think it's interesting. I don't know if you mentioned made in the USA in your presentation. You seem quite intent on the textile sourcing coming from countries like China, Pakistan, and India. And I think there's some great US companies doing some things and also some great European companies doing things during this time. I just wanted to add that.
I think it's a real good point that you made, Joseph. And I appreciate the input onto it. And it's absolutely true. I only mentioned some countries that we are using reasonably heavily now, but we actually have reached into Europe, and we have brought back several companies into the United States here, and particularly in our Southeast, where there's still a community of companies that are involved in fabrics and textiles. So I'm glad that you mentioned it, and it is an actual reasonable resource. I would say that what happens is generally the acquisition cost of the product might be higher, but when you look at what's called the landed cost, which is the ability of what it costs to get it from point A to point B, the cost in the United States and some other markets can actually become more competitive, even though the acquisition cost might be higher. So great.
I've also heard that Mexico has become so popular that they're at full capacity in some mills. So.
Right. We have boots on the ground in Mexico. We have a couple of supply chain engineers there who help us with the movement of goods in there. And their bandwidth is limited. They're trying to beef up and so forth, but they have their own problems related to the pandemic themselves. So it's a slow process, but they do have a capacity. They have a specific program called the Maquiladora, which is designed for foreign companies manufacturing and assembling there and moving their product back into other countries. So Mexico is really another reasonable option, particularly for U.S. companies. So on this slide, I mentioned previously that service providers, brokers, and freight forwarders is a critical element now of supply chain, ever so more important. So 5 steps or criteria there is make sure they have a global reach, make sure they have an expertise in supply chain disruption and mitigation, that they have a 24/7, 365 availability, that they have an access to a number of options, contacts, and resources, and trade compliance, that they become a partner in your supply chain and support you in the recovery process. So other supply chain impacts and considerations that we open up as conversations is how long will it take China, being one of the largest suppliers to the world, and now the US and Europe and the world, to get coronavirus under control. We know that's starting to happen as we speak. How China is going to react to pricing, tariffs, negotiation, its position in global trade, the relationship it has to the United States, both politically and economically. The repositioning of alternative sources, and particularly Mexico and back to the United States. The damage that has been done to carriers servicing the Asia, Europe to the world markets, and the repositioning of those assets to where they were prior to January of this year. The export sales to China, Asia, and Europe, how will they be impacted as the companies and the countries recover? The impact to the Chinese and European suppliers individually and the sustainability of those resources. And lastly, China's global image, the residual impact of all this that's going on now with the finger pointing and where the origin was and so forth. That all remains to be seen how that's going to get sorted out.
You're referring to like the Senate investigation?
I'm thinking about but it's not just here. There are a number of European countries that politically have made positions taken on this thing about where it started, the lack of transparency on the part of Chinese authorities, and the fact that it was 60 days into it before the notification started to come out that the severity of the problem. All those are the issues that I'm referring to.
Tom, if I may, I just quick, and I think that's a really unfortunate consequence of this is how the Chinese consumer will also may suffer from this unfortunate event because it's really not their fault. And China is a great market and a very important market, not only for us, but as far as the German economy in general. So I hope the relationship side and the communication stays open and clear, and this doesn't become, as again, this finger pointing is kept at a reasonable level, and we are able to maturely get through this together.
So Tom, have you heard from your clients, hey, we're looking at different countries for our supply chain?
Yeah, we have probably 50% of our staff is focused on developing alternative sourcing for clients now. I would say that the main origin is China, and looking for options, not to completely eliminate China, but to reduce their dependency on China. One of our longer-term concerns is that the U.S. government could legislate action. What's being discussed is to create a list of those products that would be considered of critical importance to the country and require U.S. companies to have a certain percentage of that manufacturing done out of China or possibly here in the United States. So that's a concern that legislation might interfere with the openness of trade. So, we're watching that very carefully, but it is coming out from a number of the politicians now as rhetoric. So we'll see if it turns into substance.
And do you see the supply chain opening up in the coming months, in the coming years to other countries? Do you see diversification?
It already started. It's a risk management policy, I would say, particularly for the larger companies of the world, to diversify their sourcing portfolio and not become so dependent on, products that are originating in China. So that has started a long time ago, and a lot of countries have come to the table to show their prowess in manufacturing. Joseph mentioned Germany and Europe before. Europe has risen up very dramatically to be a resource, and particularly in your vertical of fabrics and textiles to be another option for companies and countries to look at.
And Tom, I also, and I agree, and I think that the change in consumer behavior will also help diversify the supply chain. I don't know if, I think that we're going to have a consumer who's also going to be changed by this event and look for other things than just this consume, buy, and throw away, and really think about other aspects when they're purchasing. And I think that's an opportunity for European and all manufacturers really to get involved, to have a real story when it comes to sustainability and when it comes to responsible production methods and really environmental and things like that, and how it's going to impact the consumer.
Agreed, absolutely. So trying to continue on here, I only have a couple more slides, there's the impact to the insurance issue, and one is the companies that buy receivable insurance on their receivables, both domestically and internationally. The people we've spoken to, they've seen a dramatic increase in the number of claims coming in because companies are unable to pay their obligations. We've seen a number of companies try to claim against their business interruption insurance parts of their policies as well. And we just see risk management playing a much larger role in how companies think. I think the growth over the last 4 or 5 years of the world economy has gotten people to aggressively buy and sell, and they haven't looked at risk the same way. And I think that this pandemic, possibly one of the good things that will come out of it, is that people will build a little bit more of a risk management mindset into how they enter into various agreements and arrangements in international business. On the banking side, we're seeing it already, and it's going to continue to happen, is that the credit markets will tighten, non-payments will increase, the use of letters of credit, which is a more secure means of international trade, will increase, meaning that good faith will start to diminish. Continued government bailouts will increase. That's going to cause huge deficits all over the world. And in the United States, we have the Export-Import Bank, as does other countries around the world. These are banks that are run by government agencies around the world that help their companies import and export. So they're going to have to play a larger role in it. Here in the United States, Ex-Im Bank specifically just put an edict out where it's excluding anything to do with personal protection equipment. In the short term, some of the things that we've talked to, particularly to American companies relevant to exporting, though this would be applicable to almost any place in the world, is you obviously need to watch your receivables closely. You need to keep tight, concise communications. While other countries and other companies contract, it's possibly time to get aggressive in your export sales activities, aggressive in offering deals, terms, and creative approaches to how you sell. Approach the existing import accounts that you have overseas to see if in fact they can bring in other products that they might be able to sell. I see a lot of companies that have nothing to do with personal protection equipment, PPE, masks and gowns and so forth, and materials are now entering into those markets to take advantage of that. And you need to work with your government agencies that have all kinds of programs available to help your ability to sell your products overseas. Here in the United States, we have the Department of Commerce, particularly the International Trade Administration, which has a whole program available to help U.S. companies reach foreign markets. And they actually do a very, very good job at doing that. Just to kind of keep things a little bit lightheaded for all of us who are quarantined, let's just hope that when this is all over, we can
my battery is weak. I need a charger.
So recovery planning, which every one of us is entering into this thought, the recovery has begun in May and will continue through the fourth quarter. But we need to plan now. We need to set up a team that will focus on the recovery challenges, create solutions in all our companies. We need to manage the supply chain, import and export, along with trade compliance issues will be critical. Look for the U.S. government and the various governments of the world to be strategically involved, both as a resource and potentially as a deterrent. Communicate timely and comprehensively with suppliers, customers, and all the service providers and carriers. In summary, the coronavirus is a serious issue, and though it may have peaked, we have not yet seen the worst of the impact. While the economic impact has already hit us, we really believe that it will be all the way through till August, that it will take each month will get worse and worse because you'll have more people who are out of work, and you're going to have more people that are calling and filing for bankruptcy, more closures, and more people struggling to move their product from point A to point B. While there is much we cannot control, we can get informed, prepare, and take certain steps to mitigate the impacts that I've shared with you earlier. We need to develop a sourcing risk strategy that adapts to all the points made in all these previous slides, and an export sales strategy to both protect and grow international sales. We need to keep trade compliance in our thoughts. We need to look at our vendors and sourcing tier one suppliers, a critical risk management strategy, develop the resources for guidance, and look at alternative sources such as in Mexico or back here in the United States are very legitimate issues. And lastly is my comments to everybody is I'll take questions from anybody who's here. I think they're going to hold the ones for people outside the panel to the end, but for everybody to reach out to us, my contact information is here if I can be helpful, and for everybody to be well and safe.
Thank you, Tom. I also wanted to mention that I believe it's in April of 2021, next year, we're going to have Heim Textile Columbia, which will be in, I can't think of the town right now, but it will be in Columbia.
Medellin.
Yes. And that will be next year. So Latin America is obviously trying to garner more business here, and so look for that. The story's on our website. So why don't we talk to Joseph next and see what he has to say.
Well, thank you very much, Michael and Ray. It's really nice to be here, and Tom, I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
You really can't highlight enough how the industry and how all businesses have been affected by what has occurred in the last, especially the last 6 to 8 weeks. Noitex, we are a completely vertical manufacturer of textiles for home decoration, for window coverings, and for contract and technical applications. We are part of a group called the Hoftex Group and the Airvo Holding. And our total holding, our group, we're around 4,500 employees, and we operate on 5 continents, and we're around $700 million US in sales per year. Now, Noitex is just a part of that group, but it's been definitely a wild ride. In Germany, just to touch base, in Germany, what's happened, we've been very fortunate. The German government, I think, did a great job of managing the crisis. We have had a higher number of cases, but the fatality per case is much lower than other countries. We've also been able to work carefully, but we've been able to work through this crisis. So we have not had any forced closure at any time, which I think has been an opportunity to continue with developments, to adapt to this new situation. And we're also really a critical supplier at Noitex through our technical fabrics division to a number of companies who are producing finished or other products where our fabric is a part of that product, which is to fight in the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's just a bit of an overview as far as our experience. And then again, we've done a lot to, I think one of the things we touched on just briefly before this started is the allocation of resources. And definitely it's been very critical to be able to allocate your resources properly, and the flexibility of your team, a team of employees, has been crucial in our case of understanding the situation, wanting the best for our organization and our customers. And when we talk about, I think what we saw with this current crisis is that these ruptures in supply chain for the companies that continued to work has cost them a lot of money. And for us, we think it's been a definite advantage. We've been there for our customers throughout this crisis situation and been able to provide for them. So we're very proud of that.
And has your business increased during this?
It has not. I tell you, I think everyone experienced the end of March and the first days of April leading into Easter. That was a wild ride for everyone. Again, we did have parts of our business which did increase during that time period, and other parts of the business which has suffered. And of course, the home textile part had suffered greatly during that period. We were fortunate with other parts, however, to help mitigate that damage in some sense. So yeah, I would say that no, we did not increase our total turnover, but we're quite proud of where we stand.
And so the businesses that you worked with in Europe, were most of them open and doing business, or how was that situation?
So Germany itself was, it depended on the, let's say the region. So each region had different guidelines during the crisis. We did not have a scenario at any moment where all units of, let's say, our larger customers were forced to close, but we were affected by certain regions. Today, especially businesses under, let's say, 8,000 square feet, I would say most of them are operating right now today in Germany, and we do see that in our daily business. So outside, and what was interesting was, and was also a big challenge in the export, we did, of course, there were a lot of companies, a lot of our customers were forced to close. And even though the logistics were there to provide them, we weren't able to deliver because they were not there to take the goods. But of those customers, I would say 75%, if not a higher number, are back online and at least receiving goods today.
And the rest of Europe, I was speaking with someone from France, and they were saying that they weren't doing business.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think that's an attest to the, as far as, again, I mean, Germany, of course, industrially, we're a very important part of the industrial fabric in Europe. And they did a great job of making sure that we were able to work. Of course, you know, social distancing, home office. We had many employees who had never had a home office scenario, or I think it's another word for it is this smart working. And we were able to get them installed and working where in our office, the office side of the business, we were 80% home office at some point. And today we're still at around 50%. And we think that's the right thing to do, because the last thing we want is put our employees in danger. In the production side, it's a little bit easier because, you know, there's not this close contact. And of course, masks are provided for our employees. And on the production side, again, and on our warehouse, we're very, very happy, very proud of the team and the job we did during this time.
Okay, great. I want to remind everyone that you can ask a question under the Q&A if you need to. I noticed some people are raising their hands, but I'm not sure how to do that. So if you'll ask, go under Q&A and ask a question, I am getting that. Nimish, why don't we see what's going on in India?
So hi, this is Nimish Arora. I run Dicitex Furnishings, one of the larger companies in India and probably in the world. Here in India, we've had a lockdown for more than 45 days. It's 1.3 billion people under lockdown, but it has been handled very well. And what we have learned through this is something what our ex-president once told us, Mr. Abdul Kalam: a dream is not what you do while sleeping. It's something that keeps you awake. So we in India have inspired to make technologically new fabrics, new ways of digital marketing, and probably to get a small chunk away from China. That's what the government is promoting. So our company, through its long-term experience with certain collaborations in Switzerland, has tied up to make bacteria-free fabrics, which is a new finish, which is antibacterial finished curtains and upholstery fabrics, which will, it has already been tested by us in our bed linen division. And we find this could be a sort of a solution to low maintenance on the fabrics as well, because it also has a lot of other virtues, like we can have antivirus finishing as well, and innovative ways of marketing it through a B2B app which we have made a year back for the Indian retailers, which had been tested in India. But we would like to promote this with our distributors worldwide and give small minimum inventory programs. The biggest challenge for us in India is going to be how to run huge capacities at the most optimum value. So new innovations have led us to make PPE fabrics. Necessity is the requirement of the day. We also have started making a certain amount of masks, and the government has been very proactive in terms of sanitization. Each and every procedure of machineries has been cleaned. The factories are being, it's like each and every machine is going to be sanitized. There is going to be complete hygiene. There are separate entry points, separate exit points for the labor, because we do employ a large amount of labor. The working capacity of, we employ 3,500 people. So we've made a provision to work in shifts now. We will work 12-hour shifts so that people are less tired, can give the best work, and basically give the best. We have also been doing work from home in India, where we've been just started to take orders today for our online cut service division in India, where we will start delivering fabrics to the need of the retailer. We hope to tie up Indian mills. We talk India as general, not just our mill. We would be very encouraged in tying up with major distributors and retailers and make stock-based programs, one roll minimum, less inventory, time to delivery would be faster. So innovation will have to come in. The government has also been very proactive, especially our company into e-commerce. There's the president of Amazon over here, and it has taught us how to customize fabrics for co-working and co-house websites which exist in India. There are companies which have already started tying up with mills and their distributors to basically deliver fabric through the retailer to the consumer's house. So what basically that means is innovation. A mill or a distributor will tie up with its channel partner in the US or Europe, and we will service this customized software, which is B2B right now, and it will remain B2B, and basically customize it to make ready-to-stitch curtains and eventually even reupholster fabrics. The biggest challenge in this is the 3D visualization, because it cannot, nothing can replace the touch and feel. Overall, on the shipment front, the ports are working here in India. It's encouraging to see a few shipments of ours going out tomorrow. The country has just opened up today, so it is going to be a process, but the rate of death is much under control. There isn't a great fatality rate. Everything is furnished in the right way. The government has made an app which is, tracking the COVID virus. So it makes us feel that when we do get out of it, which will be May 15th onwards, that we will be able to get the capacity of the world, because we are ready to take on a challenge and prove our existence, the country, because we do feel that the American government and Indian government are working hand in hand, and there are many other ways where we might innovate together as a country. It has also taught us a lot of humility, that you might be whoever you are, you might be the biggest or the second biggest company in the world, you might have so many people, but honesty and integrity will remain. And it's tough times, but I feel this too shall pass. There is another product which we have launched, which is called Bacter-free bed linen, which has again antivirus and antibacteria fabric, which can be more hygienic, like sustainable fabric. It's got Okotex rating as well. We're tying up with the hospitals over here. We would like to introduce that to various parts of the world. But the worrisome part is the huge influx of the spare capacity of everyone. It could be a distributor, it could be a retailer, it could be a mill. There has to be a common marketplace now come across various globes where we can team up together with the likes of Mr. Tom Cook, who spoke so well, with the partners in Germany, Turkey, and even China, because China is never going to go there. And we must make a common marketplace, could be online, and take our distributors and retailers and move a little bit more towards e-commerce.
Have you, do you see India picking up more of a market share once things get going? Do you see an increase at all?
We feel India will go like a step-by-step approach. It has to, it will pick up almost like a wave, you know. Definitely in the next 6 months, we will get a bigger market share, but it is going to take time because the commodity fabrics India still does not make. India is known for design, quality, and vertical integration. You know, we might file in a mill like us. We have fabrics which makes embroidery, curtains, jacquards, prints, the entire supply chain. But for us to make commodity will still take time. And once it's achieved, it will be here to stay, because we will work on lower margins. What we have decided as a mill, me and my brother, to give a very competitive price point, to beat China at its own game, to come up with a better fabric, better delivery system, sustainable fabrics. And I'm sure other Indian mills or Turkish mills will also follow, because it's not only about product now, it's also about what is right. We don't know how quickly this virus is going to get solved, but we must make fabrics which will probably sustain the part of the, go through the cleanliness process. Yes, but answering your question, India will definitely take 20% of the China market away in the long run.
Okay, thank you very much. Melissa?
Yeah, hi everyone. I've certainly learned a lot about what you guys all do on a day-to-day basis, so thank you for letting me be here today. I am one of the owners of Serendipity Consulting, which is a full-service marketing and PR agency based in the US, serving clients all over, both B2B and B2C. So I want to hit on a few ideas of how you can keep communicating and marketing through this, through the crisis we're in, and then into a possible recession or just change in the way we do business. So as Tom said, relationships are key in this. And the way that you can build that deeper connection and that relationship is through authenticity, through honesty, through constant and open communication. That's the kind of marketing that's going to win through this. And that's the way we're moving. We've been moving before COVID, and we're moving fast now in COVID into transparency, and that's not going to go away. So the worst thing that you can do right now is to go dark. Your marketing, I understand, may take a back seat to the operations of your business, but you have to be communicating and marketing just differently through this. So a few things to keep in mind. Honest communication on social media, email marketing. We'll talk tactical in a minute, but that honesty is critical with caution. I want to remind you that, when you're talking on social media or in your marketing about the struggles you're facing right now, the changes you're making, you definitely don't want to give the perception that, you're scared or you're going to go out of business. Of course, that could have the reverse effect, but there is a balance of the fear you may be facing, the challenges you're overcoming as a business owner or in your position, and sharing that openly and authentically. I also think it's important that you realize you can't be hard selling right now. We are all losing revenue, or it's been definitely paused for a period of time. But no matter how you market right now, don't pursue that hard sell or be too aggressive. with those marketing and sales touch points, that will totally come off as insensitive. It'll turn off buyers or partners. Those people are trying to face tough decisions right now and cutting budgets, and you don't want to give them a reason to cut you. So instead, I encourage you to show compassion, offer solutions, be consultative, understand that might not bring revenues in right away, but in the long run, it certainly will position you as a long-term partner. A few of the tactics that you could be doing right now from a marketing perspective is obviously social media is the easiest, the most accessible, and the least expensive. LinkedIn is excellent if you are a B2B business, which most of you are, being honest, authentic there. Twitter, Facebook, even considering building a small community group on WhatsApp, especially if you do have that international audience, where you can serve as a resource and bring together partners, customers who are all facing these challenges together. That could really build a strong ongoing relationship past this. I encourage you, the kind of content you could be sharing right now, I've heard so many good ideas already. How are you changing your business? Talk about that. Are you sourcing new material that's antibacterial? Talk about that. New cleanliness practices. Have you started producing PPE instead of what you normally produce to help? Nimish mentioned innovating. How are you innovating? Talk about that. Don't be afraid that your competition will see that you're talking about innovating. Share that you're innovating without being super specific. Other ideas, what resources can you offer to your network right now who's struggling? What do they need right now? What would make their life easier? And how can the messaging and the marketing that you're pushing out there add value and not noise? Is there a way to pivot in an authentic way to show how you or your company can serve right now those affected by this pandemic? Finally, we just talked about, building this central, maybe online marketplace. I mean, virtual selling is the way it's going to move. We have shifted 10 years ahead quickly. We've been forced to, and really bringing many business online. That's not going to go away post-COVID, period. So while we will certainly, want a level of in-person communication and sales, you should plan on having a virtual sales force and virtual communications built out fully on your website. We've been doing this for clients in every industry, not only building out these virtual sales environments, but also training on how do you build rapport and sell and show virtually. It's totally possible. And if you don't adopt that now, you will be left behind. So that's something you can easily get started on now. And then storytelling. So keep in mind in all of your communications, stories are what sells. I'm not saying made up stories like fairy tales. I'm saying the stories of how you got to where you are today, how you've gotten through the hard times in the past, how you've helped customers. I want you to really think about those stories and find ways that you can share those on social media through video marketing, which right now is the most consumed marketing on the internet, and it converts the best. How can you do organic videos that talk about those stories and share those stories and solicit feedback and solicit ideas from your viewers? And then finally, email marketing. I think people for so long have thought that this is a tactic that needs to be thrown to the wayside, when in reality, when email marketing is done really well, it is so effective. And right now, people are spending more time than ever in front of their phones and on their computers. If you have a really dialed in email marketing campaign that keeps your customers engaged with the content they're looking for right now, they will remember you, be reminded of you, come back to you, talk to you, and you will win in the long term. So I guess in closing, if you haven't been doing a lot of marketing before this, or let's say you've stopped altogether right now, take a deep breath and remember, like, you can jump back in with just one or two things, as long as you do those one or two things really well. Like maybe you just attack, video marketing and email marketing to start with, or LinkedIn and email marketing, but just take it slow, be authentic, be real, be a person, and you will definitely come out ahead.
So I've seen in some of the social media, we're open, we're still doing business, that kind of thing. What if they're not? What if they weren't open and doing business and they're starting out? What's the best way to present that, you think?
Yeah, like a reactivation campaign. And that's something that you know, you can think through what makes the most sense for your company, but definitely an email campaign, a video that you can post to LinkedIn and social media and your website, re-announcing that you're back in business and how excited you are, and talk about the challenges you faced the last 2 months and how you're pivoting and how you're ready to serve. That goes back to authenticity and honesty and openness. But a reactivation campaign is critical if you've gone dark the past few months.
I used to ride around it. I used to think Uber was on my phone so I could get around. Then I started thinking maybe they put Uber on the phone because that makes me take the phone.
I'm not sure what that was, but anyway.
So, Melissa,
Yes.
I think we're all still on. I really, it was really nice listening to you and your comments and your expertise. And I think one of the things that we've learned from this crisis is through video, such webinars and video conferencing, and is efficiency in communication and becoming faster in our communication through media like Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Teams, and how much really is possible and how much it improves the communication as a classic phone call. Because I really had video conferencing fears 6 weeks ago. And now I'm finding myself wanting to use the video to call someone and communicate. And I think it does a lot for keeping the relationship. And especially now that we're not going to be able to see each other as much as in the past. So,
yeah, that rapport, that's what I was talking about with social selling and virtual selling. That communication, I feel like I've built deeper relationships with my clients and my employees during this time. When normally I'm head down at my desk and I'm just in and out of meetings all day, I'm actually now face-to-face talking on Zoom instead of picking up the phone like you said. And that's, again, that's not going to go away. So how can we merge coming out of this a version of our marketing and our selling and our sales virtually, as well as keeping some of that in person? So it's going to be an interesting world, an exciting one.
I totally agree. And Nimish made a point to this as well with his app. We also have an app which we launched to allow customers to see our products, kind of as virtual presentation of our products that's available in the Android and the Apple stores. In our business, in the home textile business, the big key is how do we give this touch and feel to the product? How do we transmit that digitally and capture that inspiration? I think that's a big challenge for us as far as in the home textile.
Yeah.
And what's the, excuse me, and what's the name of the app, Joseph?
If you look under Neutex, Neutex, you can find the app in the Android and Apple stores. And it's basically what we did was if we wanted to simulate as if one of our sales representatives, agents, was visiting our customers. So it's just a nice way to get a great overview of our latest products. And of course, we also understand just because we're in Japan or in China or in the United States on a business trip, not everyone is waiting to see us. So we also wanted to give them a chance through this app to be able to see our latest products and our best of products and other new additions at their convenience. And then we know, hey, that you've ordered some samples, you've requested some technical information, and we'll contact you when it's ready, when it's time. And not having that. And I think goes to what Melissa says is we want to get away from this push selling and get really into a more of a pull selling environment. And I think with our app, we're able to achieve a part of that. It's just a start, but we're very happy with that. So, and it's also, open for everyone. Anyone can download it.
Wow, that's excellent. Melissa, I'd just like to make a point. If you could come up with a common marketplace program between Germany, India, Turkey, and talking about virtual sales, probably through fabrics and furnishings, that could be an entire new opening. And there are some people from Britain over here, from Dubai. It's sky's the limit. If you are specializing in that, it could be a very fruitful, productive execution.
And yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's super interesting. You're right.
This kind of Nimish, this kind of reminds me of a material bank. You know, you could do a material bank for fabrics and furnishings kind of thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like as you go to the D&D building, or you go to probably go to Heintex, you meet so many people. If you have a virtual marketing thing which has distributors, editors, mills, that's going to be on round the clock working. Not everybody has my friend from Dicitex was saying earlier, that can work all around the clock. People want to work sometimes at 10 in the night, sometimes at 5 in the morning, and it can be fantastic execution. It's like Netflix, I mean, the movie. I mean, you go on to Netflix, you don't want to go to the theater. You have this virtual thing. It's exciting if you could execute this.
Right.
And if you'd like somebody to design it in India, we have a lot of software talent here because it's cheaper to make it here.
Okay, great.
I definitely agree that Nimish and I totally agree that we have to, as manufacturers, we have to give more tools for the customer to be in control and at their convenience, at their time and willingness to look and experience our products. And I think your ideas can be very interesting. Of course, it can be a great way to start something like that.
Hey, Tom, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't see your face there. Okay, we have a question for you. It said, what did Tom Cook mean when he said, pay attention to, quote, trade compliance?
The trade compliance is dealing with the rules and regulations of goods as they pass through the border. So the right harmonized tariff number, the right valuation, the right origin, the documentation, certificates and certifications and so forth that's required. Because of all this PPE things moving and people being concerned with cost, customs all over the world, and including here in the United States, are very diligently now looking at everything coming through to make sure that the compliance side is being done correctly. It's
And
always
this is something you're
it's always
carrying.
been an issue. It's just raised the bar now because of all the circumstances going on in the world.
Okay, all right. And is it okay if we release the contact information for you guys to the to people that have been on the webinar?
Yep.
I don't have a problem. Yeah, sure.
Fine here. Fine.
Nimish?
I'm fine.
Okay, all right, great. Just wanted to make sure.
No problem.
Someone asked if there's a second attack of the virus what if there's a second attack of the virus before the vaccine comes out? I'm assuming, we'll deal with that bridge when we get to it, but does anybody have any comments?
I think what we're doing is what we've seen when the crisis hit. Definitely you have the online business was able to withstand this crisis much better. So the customers that were working online and also technical oriented fabrics. So like these PPE fabrics with maybe a bit more functionality to be better prepared for when that hits next time. And we've also been, of course, we've had in our program antibacterial and antivirus type products, but definitely keep a current library of items available to help attack this type of a scenario in the future and be ready.
Also, Joseph, there's a question for you. It says, can you please go a bit deeper through the challenges in digital presentations for home textiles and especially for window textiles?
So I think the biggest challenge that you have is, of course, the quality of the imagery. We have to be sure that the client is able to achieve as much as possible a look and a feel for the fabric, although they're looking at it on a digital device. This was our biggest, I think, focus to start, and also with the coloring. And then also how to present that and who was our target market. And our target market, especially in export, are textile wholesalers, jobbers, industrial companies. And how can we present that in a way that's convenient for them to see our latest designs, create favorite lists, order samples, get technical information, etc. Because so often I think what every customer fears is when they send an email and waiting for an answer. And we want to try to give those answers before they have to send the email or make a phone call, that they have it, as Nimish had mentioned earlier. If I want to get up at 5 in the morning and work on a new collection or work on a Saturday, to at least have the information I need at hand. Great.
So I wanted everyone to let them know that you can give me an email, and that's ray@fabricsandfurnishings.com, all spelled out. And if you have any other comments, let's see. We have another question here. So Melissa, they're asking if you have seen our magazine, Fabrics and Furnishings, which I think we sent you. And can she say a few words about advertising in trade magazines, print, and online?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to, if your customers read the magazine, that's a great place for you to advertise. But I also think advertising is not always the only thing that you can do to engage. Being an expert source, providing expert commentary, if you truly are one. A lot of magazines like Fabric and Furnishings look for bylined content. They want great sources to interview. They want stories to tell, case studies. Share that stuff. Pitch the editor. Pitch your ideas. Share your content without being salesy. Be informational and educational. And yes, advertise, because that's what keeps the magazines alive. And it does, if you do advertising correctly with a call tracking number, a great call to action, it will yield results. And the other thing just to know about advertising in general, usually a one and done ad is not really worth your time. People need to see things, a few times to take action. So I recommend, if you're going to advertise, do a series of ads in that one outlet in order to have it be effective.
Yeah, that's one of our comments too, is like, you can't just have one ad. You can't just have one. You want to get name recognition. It has to happen over time, right? Let's see. One other question. It says, what do the panelists think would happen or will happen, I guess, to shows like Heim Text and others post-COVID, after the COVID virus? So I guess the most recent would be Proposed, and then Intertextile, and then
we had a discussion about that today. So in Germany, they are planning that the Heimtext will take place, and we are going to participate. So we hope everyone that is able to come will attend. I think it's an important, vital part of our industry. And one of the discussions we had today, of course, everyone is concerned. I mean, this has been a serious situation, and it's affected all of us financially, emotionally, and in so many ways. But we will be attending, and I think the big question is, we actually will we kept a large stand because we want to allow space on the stand, because we don't know how many people will be able to be on a stand at one time. No one knows how this new environment will function. And so for us, again, it is expected to take place. We will be there, and with a large presence, because we want to give our customers space on our stand to be able to view our products in the safest way possible. But it's going to be very interesting, that's for sure. So, but also, I think that's why we reinforced our digitalization campaign as well. Excuse me, Nimish, sorry.
I agree with Joseph. It'll be more of a smaller Heimtext though, bigger space booths, not so many companies, only the serious companies, and virtual marketing. About the other shows like Proposed and FTX, I feel it might go down, because there might be more US shows where distributors and mills have to tie up together. I think US is going to be a very important part now of the world, because whatever it is, it has shown resilience. The economy is not shut. I know there are a lot of debts, but it is giving us an opportunity still to run our mills. So I think US will constitute a large part of the market now.
Thank you very much. Are there any last parting words anyone wants to say?
For us, what I think is what we're paying the most attention is how this will affect consumer behavior after the crisis, and how that will affect the new distribution channels and sourcing options. And again, I think it definitely has, of course, being a European manufacturer, we've had to accustom ourselves. We really are professionals when it comes to sourcing support, when it comes to dependability, reliability. But I think most importantly, sourcing support as far as, you know, maybe somewhat smaller minimums, a bit more flexibility with special developments. So we're very curious to see how this plays out moving forward, and especially to learn our place. I think for the textile industry, it's very good, especially in all countries, because everyone's realized, wow, we are a vital part of the community and of our safety as far as products fighting diseases like this. It's essential to have our industry in each country, essential.
For us, I would like to say innovate, refresh, and eventually dream big, and this too shall pass. You know, there are a lot of things which textile industry before us has seen, and we have to learn from our experiences and lead by example. And probably the market size will be small, but step by step, small paces, with the help of all of the entire world as a common marketplace. That even includes China. You know, we need everybody to unite, and I'm sure by next year we'll come out much stronger, better out of this.
So one of the key takeaways that I liked was reactivation campaign or activation campaign. Get that started, especially on LinkedIn. Get a LinkedIn if you're doing B2B. And also, I really like the idea of having a small WhatsApp group to keep everyone informed. We've been talking a lot about communication, and I think that would be a great way to do that. Also, logistics. Logistics are going to be key, so try to find out how, when, and where you're going to ship, and where is that going to be possible. For instance, Tom talked about, even though China may be up to 80% production and manufacturing, their logistics has fallen behind that, and so there's going to be a lag time. Other than that, I think we're pretty much done, unless anyone else has something last they want to say. I want to thank all of the panelists and their time, and everyone for joining. And again, if you have any questions or comments that we haven't answered, please email me. It's Ray, R-A-Y, at fabricsandfurnishings.com.
It's great hearing and meeting all of you, Tom and Melissa and the remaining. Good, thank you so much. Good meeting everybody.
It was great meeting everyone, and stay safe.
Thank you again. Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Joseph. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. How you doing? I had my microphone
I'm good.
on.
Yeah, no worries. I just need to have your app name. Can you pronounce it?
Sure, it's Neutex, N-E-U-T-E-X.
It's on, that's the app name only?
Yeah, if you put that in the App Store, you'll be able to find the app.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Enjoy.
Yeah, thank you.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from India, Delhi, New Delhi.
Oh, it's late there. You need to go to bed.
Yeah, it's late. Yeah.
All right. Have a nice evening.
Yeah,
Good night.
same to you. Thank you.